All right, Emily, where are we?
We're in Cusco, and we are standing in front of the statue of Túpac Amaru II. And if you watched our last video, you learned about some of the reforms that the Spanish Bourbons were doing that were leading to increased taxation, increased forced labor of indigenous people, especially in the silver mines. Lots of, obviously, violence and oppression of the indigenous and mestizo people in the Americas. Okay, so Túpac Amaru II, that was not his original name, but he was part of the cacique class. Do you know what that is, Emily?
I have absolutely no idea.
Okay, great. So what the Spanish did when they conquered Peru is that the Inca Empire had such a good infrastructure set up that they just kept a lot of it and then used it for their benefit. So they kept the mita system, but turned it into a super violent forced labor system. They also kept these like local caciques in power. So there were families that were kind of elevated to be the rulers of different areas, and so he was from one of those. So he was higher class, he was educated, he was also indigenous. And basically he found at some point a book that had been suppressed by the Spanish that told about the glory of the Incan Empire, and he thought, we need to go back to that. Cut to, this is way oversimplified, there's a lot more people involved, but he starts a rebellion against Spanish rule. He names himself Túpac Amaru II and says, I'm gonna lead this rebellion of indigenous and mestizo and even Creole people. He wants the Criollos to join, hoping that they'll rebel against the Peninsulares. And he's actually able to win multiple battles. He's just never able to conquer Cusco. And eventually he was captured, and his death is really famous and has become sort of a central rallying point for eventually Peruvian independence and kind of Peruvian pride. So he was captured, he was brought to the main square in Cusco, where Túpac Amaru I was executed as part of like the end of this neo-Inca state 200 years earlier. They tried to tie all four limbs to four different horses. They tried to, is that called quartering?
Quartering.
They tried, but it failed. And so then they cut his head off. Before this happened, he had to watch his entire family be killed. And including his children, and what I think is fascinating is if you cut over here, you can see a pillar that says Hipólito Mariano Fernando Túpac Amaru. That's his family. So he was forced to watch all of them die, and then he was killed very brutally. He has really badass last words that I'm gonna look up and say in a second.
All right, what were his last words?
Okay, so before Túpac Amaru II was executed, they tortured him and asked him to like name other names of people as part of the resistance, and he very famously said, I might get it slightly wrong, there are no other accomplices except you and I. You as oppressor, I as liberator deserve to die.